Hey everybody, welcome to the Anthony and Todd Show. I'm your host Trevor.
And I'm Vincent.
And today we're going to be taking a look at the latest Westside Gunn project, Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone.
Close, but not there.
The latest Westside Gunn project, Who Made the Sunshine? Westside Gunn, we talked about him a dozen times on this channel. As Buffalo MC, founder of Griselda Records, along with his brother Conway the Machine, who's a robot, and his cousin Benny the Butcher, who is a butcher. They've recently signed to Rock Nation, Jay-Z's label, and they had a publishing deal with Eminem's label, Shady Records, on which they release What Would Machine Gun Do late last year in 2019. Westside has had a pretty prolific output up until this point. Some of our favorite projects include Supreme Blientel from 2018, Hitler Wears Hermes, specifically the 7th edition of that back in 2019, as well as Pray for Paris earlier this year, which I think was his best project to date. We gave that one a glowing review. And in between Pray for Paris and this project, he also released the sequel to Fly God is an Awesome God, Fly God is an Awesome God 2, which was kind of meh.
It was just all filler.
Like that Sum 41 album, all filler, no killer. Who Made the Sunshine is actually Westside's Shady Records solo debut. So this was the long talked about Shady Records collab that was just him and not his family, except for his family's on here anyway. So it was produced primarily by Beat Butcher and in-house producer Derringer, with a couple of tracks produced by guests The Alchemist, Conductor Williams, and Just Blaze. There's a lot of pretty prominent features on this project as well. As usual, he's got Benny and Conway on here, and
they're contractually obligated to show up.
They have to. They show up at like 3
or else
a.m.
Conway's going to tell his mom, and then Westside will be grounded.
Mom said it's my turn on the Xbox. Other pretty prolific features on here include Black Thought from The Roots, Boldy James, who's also signed to Griselda Records, as well as Armani Caesar, another signee, Jadakiss, Busta Rhymes, and I think biggest of all is probably Slick Rick. I think I read somewhere that Slick Rick's only done like maybe 12 features since his last project in like 2005, and he's got 2 of them on here. So I think that's pretty impressive, and I think you have to be pretty prolific figure in the game in order to get a feature of that caliber.
So this album's kind of in a weird place for me. While I think it is a fully polished Westside Gunn album, up there with the likes of Hitler Wears Hermes and Pray for Paris, I think there's some very upfront issues that I have with this that I don't think a lot of other people will have. I've heard some hype around this saying this is Westside Gunn's best project to date. I still think Pray for Paris is miles ahead of this, even though this is still pretty good. I think while I'm going to knock a lot of what this album has, I still appreciate it for what it is. I just wanted to get that out front. While there's a ton of consistency and I feel like maturity to this album, I feel on other ends the charisma and the overall experience is kind of lacking. I feel like Westside on this project, while he had some really, really great bars, while he had some great performances, I think there is this kind of almost impromptu or spontaneous character that's kind of missing from here that we would have gotten on previous projects. Like we would have gotten on tracks like French Toast or Undertaker versus Goldberg. That doesn't really pop up on much as here. He's pretty consistent. He's pretty tame, not as tame as he was on What Would Machine Gun Do, where I felt like he was almost lacking or wasn't adding to the project as much. I feel like he does have his own place. He does have a set direction on here and has a reason. This definitely feels like his project. I feel like things are catered to him over this time around, but I feel like they're not really catered to all the best aspects of him this time around.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I almost feel like Westside has kind of hit a comfort zone in his projects, for better or for worse. I'm sure it makes producing these things a lot easier, but honestly, here I don't find a whole lot of things that he's doing new. He's got the classic intro done by Double A Rashid. He's got intros on the majority of his projects. He's got the Westside Pootie outro somewhere in here. He's got these flourishing keys in the production that literally sound like a Pray for Paris, like outtake. I thought the intro's production came straight from Pray for Paris. I thought it was like reused from one of those tracks. It just gets to be like really samey. And we were talking about this before we started recording. Derringer and Beat Butcher, it's not to say that they're doing a bad job. We talked about Derringer on the Action Bronson review, and he's producing beats for Action they sound nothing like this. They cater really well to what Action Bronson is trying to do, and I think he was one of the highlights of his last project, Only for Dolphins. But on here, they just feel like way too samey and way too comfortable for Westside to really be himself over. There's no real like beat switch ups anywhere. There's no real production changes halfway through a song.
It sounds pretty cut and paste for what the same things, these dark kicks, these dark percussion, and these moody flourishing keys. That's basically what makes up a majority of these productions. The only track that sounds a little bit different is Leslie, because that has a little bit more atmosphere to it. But other than that, all the tracks that Beat Butcher and Derringer provide on this sound pretty samey. Alchemist, Conductor Williams, Just Blaze are those moments of fresh air on this project that add a little bit different spice into the musical backing of the project, which is really nice. Mm-hmm. But again, I think while the production is pretty samey, it's nothing to kind of destroy the project.
No, I just find it to be kind of disappointing, I guess. Let's talk about features for a minute. I think that the features on this project were kind of hit or miss. Would you agree?
I think we just didn't need some. I think like I really enjoy Keisha's Plum's performance, but I feel like we've heard this duo of Westside and her so many times that it's kind of lost the flavor. I think A.A. Rashad's intro is kind of pointless. It's funny to listen to, but I feel like he's just like not even in a state of mind to even have a valid point. He's just like rambling off this complete nonsense of the sun does only do one thing, shine. I'm just like, what does this have to do? Why is this track like 4 minutes long?
Yes.
Why does he keep on talking? Because there's no point to it. Benny and Conway, I are fine on this. I think Conway's obviously improving and showing why he's one of the shining members of the Griselda, but like at the same time, it would have been nice to see something new. Black Thought's fun. Armani Caesars has way better performances than she showcased on the last album she just put out. Busta Rhymes is really grimy this time around. Same thing he was on Supreme Clientele when they collabed. It's just like super gritty and tough.
It's very like raspy.
He sounds like he needs to like go to bed because he's too riled up. He needs to like take a nap and maybe like get a snack or something like that and chill down.
On Ocean Prime, I really like that track. It sounds like he's almost doing a bad Tyler the Creator impersonation.
You're not wrong.
You could have clipped that verse and put it onto Wolf, and I don't think I would have known the difference.
Frank Murphy, I think, showcases a bunch of young talent in the New York hip-hop scene and Smoke DZA. Also, it doesn't need to be 8 minutes long. Like, it doesn't. No universe should it be this long. Like, it feels like each of these individual features has their own track. Like, that's how long this track feels. It's like, I wouldn't say anything gets into too terrible, because I like Westside verse, I like El Camino's verse, I love Smoke DZA's verse, but I feel like it just, like, not all these pieces combine to equal a track that's worth its weight that is put on me.
Yeah, I think if Westside wanted to do something like this, he could do something like the J. Cole Revenge of the Dreamers series. I think that would have worked out way better for him, instead of just being like, oh, let's make a whole album of 3-minute tracks, and then we'll really surprise the listener by putting an 8-minute track full of people you don't know. I didn't find this track to be compelling, like, whatsoever. I don't think I would ever have reason to sit through this again. And I think Flea Lord sounds like Snoop Dogg. I think he's trying too hard to be Snoop Dogg.
Slick Rick's an awesome surprise to this. Like, I think he's fantastic. Like, he has almost this iconic status attached with him, which is nice, which I wasn't expecting. Because he's obviously like a legend of the industry, but you just don't expect his name to carry that much weight, I guess.
Well, no, because like I said, like he doesn't hop on features often. I think like Busta is a pretty he's kind of a legacy name as well, but I see Busta pop up way more than Slick Rick ever would.
Well, Busta's always awake because he's too riled up.
It's past his bedtime. He's mad.
Going to some individual tracks, I like The Butcher and the Blade featuring Benny and Conway. That's been one of my favorite collaborations with them, all three of them as Griselda up to this point. I like the name, The Butcher and the Blade. I like how on AEW this week, Eddie Kingston called The Butcher Griselda's favorite wrestler. I thought that was really cool. 98 Sabres was a very good Griselda posse cut. That went way better than expected, especially after I mentioned how much I didn't really care for Marnie Caesar's last project. Lives Loves Luger is such a brutal and villainous and clingy track that's amazing. The title alone, like Liz Loves Luger, alluding to Miss Elizabeth after she married real life husband Macho Man Randy Savage, then had this like huge downfall with drugs involving real life boyfriend Lex Luger that led to her ODing, and that comparison, that attachment, that fatal attraction between these two people builds up this like very chaotic atmosphere, which is really nice, and this villainous place for Westside to linger in, which is really cool. Villainous place for Westside to linger in, which is really cool.
I really like the track All Praises. Westside's vocals haven't improved whatsoever, but I still like listening to him try to sing. Even if you're not super good or on key or can't even, have a pitch, like carry a tune, it's still, I think, compelling to hear him sing. I already compared a different track to French Toast, but this track reminds me of French Toast from Pray for Paris, where he was just singing and it sounded kind of cute and kind of sweet, like he was talking about this girl. And All Praises is obviously not the same subject matter, but he's still singing, and I still appreciate that. I talked about the track Ocean Prime a little bit with Slick Rick and Busta. I just find those two to be such good foils to one another. You never see Busta get into such like energy and such like just raw like strength and just being angry, and then Slick Rick is just so mellow and so calm on his verse.
You almost would say slick.
I would say slick. Old Ricky is pretty slick. Yeah, I think that those two play off of each other really well.
Yeah, that's all I really got to say is I feel like while there's some problems that show their ugly heads on this album, I do think overall it's very consistent. And I think it's I hate to say serious, because it's not like, I think Westside Gunn is always just going to be himself regardless of what the project is.
I think more of the word is subdued in his own like personality. I think Pray for Paris was just oozing with Westside goodness, like what he does best. And it played off of those strengths really well and made for a really cohesive, great project. But on here, like you mentioned with Sheen Gun from last year, I just feel like he is so subdued in his own like personality. There's just no room for him to act up and do what he does best. And that's why I feel like people thought Sheen Gun was such like a consistent project, because there was no like one member of Griselda that was like breaking out of the spotlight. But here, it's his own solo project. He should be able to do like what he wants, and maybe it has something to do with his Shady Records debut where he like wants to, tone it down a little bit. But I just feel like every time there's like a big mainstream release from the Griselda boys, specifically Westside, is way more like out of character than he typically is on his own solo projects.
But I still enjoy this nonetheless. I think there's some really good moments to it, and I think while Westside can do better, I think this is pretty good on its own. Kimayo scores Futile Minos right now. I think this is like an 8-.
I'd give it like a 7.
7. It's 7+ to 8-, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
That is it for the review. Until next time, guys, if you want to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you can find us at Anthony and Todd. If you want to find us on podcast services, you can find us at Podbean, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, Spotify, by searching the Anthony and Todd Show in your favorite podcast browser. If you want to support us monetarily, you can go to patreon.com/the Anthony and Todd Show. Until next time, guys, I'm Vincent.
I'm Trevor.
And see you, boyos.
Bye, everybody.